Good afternoon, everyone. It's myself, Kenneth Gamble here. Welcome to another Live at the Waterhole session. Hope it's a wonderful Sunday for everyone so far, and hopefully we see quite a few interesting things as always. I see we've already kicked off the show with a bang here at Coral Bush Lodge in the Sabi Sands. Got a vulture picking the last bits of meat off a buffalo vertebra. Well, obviously the skull's also attached, but it's quite a nice way to kick the show off. Once again, everyone, please make sure you send your questions or comments through. It's a live and interactive show, and it's always great fun discussing certain topics and answering questions. I wanted to mention, I was quite surprised that it's just a whiteback vulture on the vertebral spinal column picking the bones clean, but then a hooded vulture has appeared. That's more their speciality, to pick those little bits of meat free from in between the bones, etc. So we could see he was also doing some work behind the whiteback vulture. I'm not sure what the full story is behind this, but I am quite suspicious it involves lions. I'm sure they probably took this buffalo down yesterday. Stephanus Nature, you'd like to know if vultures ever kill their own food? It's an interesting topic. I think it has come up once or twice before, but as far as literature goes, there's some vultures that are slightly known for, or can possibly catch small things like lizards, rodents, etc., amphibians or insects, but for the majority of the time they focus on scavenging. Their talents aren't very well adapted for grabbing or grasping prey, etc. Their oversized beaks are a lot better at tearing meat off large carcasses, etc. But on that topic, I was probably about a week ago in the Kruger National Park, and we actually came across a kill of a dead scrub hare, and initially I thought it was two tawny eagles that had killed the scrub hare, but there was a white-headed vulture also at the scene, as well as a bateleur, and obviously the bateleurs are known for being the first at a kill and scavenging, and then we also had white-backed vultures. But after reading up a bit, it was I read in the Roberts bird book that white-headed vultures are known sometimes for catching or killing hares, so it is possible. I think it's a very cool thing if you ever see it. In that situation, it would have been very exciting if we were maybe there a bit earlier to see what happened, but my conclusion was the white-headed vulture had actually killed the hare, and the tawny eagles had came and stolen the kill, and then the procession took place. But yeah, very interesting. I see there's a few comments coming through on the chat that the buffalo was killed about 2 nights ago. Okay, that's good to know. At least my deductions were halfway there. We knew lions were the culprit. It's always tough to say how quickly or how fresh some of these kills are. I know in the past in the Kruger also, you can visit a kill site the next day and there's almost nothing left, or a few bones that would almost make you think it happened quite a while ago. But yeah, it's quite typical this time of year in the dry season. Obviously the buffalo are getting a bit weaker, not being able to graze on as much nutritious grass as they would in the wet season, and they're also forced to travel quite farther for water and grazing, so they are prime pickings for the lions. The dry season is generally always a time of plenty for predators, and the opposite can be said during the wet season. It seems like it was quite a mature buffalo, probably a bit of a older bull that they were brought down. I think we're going to go have a look and see what's going on at El Doño. Our dead buffalo is certainly not going anywhere, so we'll maybe take a check later again. Right, there we go, good old classic El Doño. Our stripes and elephants are always in attendance. I always love watching the elephants at El Doño. They always seem so peaceful and placid. And then the zebras always give us a bit of entertainment with their antics. And now, Mortier, you were saying you watched the buffalo kill and 4 male lions dominated the kill. And you're asking if these male lions are all related. There's a good chance they are. It's not always a guarantee. Sometimes different males from different prides will link up while they are nomadic or separate, or over time they'll meet each other. I've seen a couple times where there's quite mature males associating with younger males. So your line dynamics can be very interesting. I'd say what I'm generally a lot better with in the field is elephants and birds, but I always do find it very interesting to read about or learn a bit more about the line dynamics in a certain area. Obviously, one relies on a lot more in-field knowledge and regular contact with the lions, but so yeah, there's a good chance that they were related. Obviously I didn't see the footage, so it's less than 100%, and I'm not too familiar with the lion prides of Nkoro. But for example, you've got you see it in so many different places. Sometimes in parts of the greater Kruger where there's lions of different ages and different associations forming coalitions, and in another section where Casper the White Lion ruled, he was in a coalition with his brothers. So it does vary. I think it depends what they come across and how they form bonds between each other to make those coalitions work. Melanin, you'd like to know how we differentiate between male and female leopards. So size is one factor. Generally a male leopard, once he's outgrown his adolescent stage, is much larger than the female. They're quite bulky. They develop quite a thick neck, sometimes a bit of a dewlap. That's one term for it. But their sheer size is quite indicative. Their necks are very thick, their heads are quite rounded, and sometimes when you see a big leopard male, you'll actually think it is a lion, just out of a size perspective. And then obviously the very simple biological way is the genitalia. You can see if it's a male, or obviously a male cat will have his testicles that you can see, and a female will not. But off the bat, sometimes you can just immediately see it off of the size. Monique mentioning it's a Kambula boys, so in this case they're related. Thanks very much for that, Monique. I must familiarize myself a bit with that area with regard to the lions. But one hones their crafts in different ways. One thing that's generally a lot more my passion, or something I enjoy doing a lot, is documenting or taking note of different tuskers in different regions. So often when I do get a chance to see quite a big elephant, I'll make a point of taking pictures that ID with the ears, etc., and keeping a bit of a collection and understanding where certain tuskers roam.
Oh, wow.
The Wild Earth Impact Foundation is a non-profit that uses the power of wildlife storytelling as a force for good. We create sustainable development projects that showcase conservation stories, empower people, and inspire environmental action. As a registered South African PBO, you can make a tax-deductible donation to the Wild Earth Impact Foundation. To find out more, visit our website.
My full name is Maxine Gaines. Best part of the job, gosh, I just love everything about guiding. I love being able to observe animal behavior and animals behaving naturally. So for me, that's by far the best part of the job. And so what we do here at Wild Earth is develop those connections with the people that are viewing, and maybe just light a little spark that says, you know what, I want to be involved in protecting this ecosystem.
Ah, the bush, full of beauty, wonder, and absolute chaos. And now, all that madness has its own show. It's called a Wild Bush Week. The countdown of the most outrageous, heart-stopping, and sometimes downright ridiculous wildlife moments of the week. Lions throwing their weight around. Hyenas gate-crashing the buffet. Leopards doing, well, leopardy things. Each week, it's a fresh reel of safari gold. A mix of drama,
She's just got an impala, everybody.
danger, and a healthy dose of laughter. So, if you fancy a highlight show with bite, and I don't mean just the animals, tune in to a Wild Bush Week. You bring the tea, and we'll bring the tusks, tails, and teeth.
You can see the crocodiles engaging in a bit of thermoregulation there. By opening its mouth, it can release built-up heat while it's basking, so it can control its body temperature in that way. Because they are cold-blooded, so they do rely on the sun's warmth or the external factors like sunshine or temperatures to increase or decrease their body temperatures to function. So generally, by opening their mouth, they just release a bit of that heat. Or sometimes they just take a dip in the water. That's also another way of controlling it. It can at times also be a threat display, but I don't think in this situation this crocodile has anything to threaten or be threatened by. was referring to one of my field guides quickly, just on the topic of lions and their coalitions. So it's not a golden rule. Generally they are related to one another, or they're brothers, but that's not always the case. And I think unless you have a very good understanding of the dynamics in an area through guides that operate there or personal experience, you might not be aware of that. But yeah, it's very interesting how they can form coalitions outside of familial bonds. It's obviously not the most normal way. It's actually quite nice this week. I came across Casper's brother while I was traversing through the Kruger National Park, so it's good to see what's going on there. There certainly appears to be a lot of dynamics taking place there, and quite a new power shift, but only time will tell what the final outcome is. I see our spoonbills are taking a bit of a break today. They're certainly a bit further away from the water than we normally see them. It certainly looks very warm and temperate there at Madikwe at the moment. So we've got a few more people joining the show. Welcome everyone. It's good to have you here. Wow, that's quite a gathering of kudu bulls there. That's at least, I'm going to quickly count them. I count at least 12 or 13 kudu bulls. It's definitely giving definition to the term bachelor herd. Obviously, kudu males don't stick with the females throughout the season. They only associate with them during the breeding season, after which they carry on with their solitary lives. But we will often see male bulls associating or congregating at times. Obviously, sometimes in the mating season for dominance. Obviously, it's not in the mating season at the moment, but interesting nonetheless. Well, we're gonna have a peek at the Willifants River. I'm sure there's some exciting things to see there. And that's quite a nice close-up of another crocodile. I don't generally get to see them too well at Tau, so it's quite nice to see one nicely perched on the bank, or basking on the bank here. This doesn't appear to be too large a crocodile, probably about 2.5-3 meters in length, but definitely large enough to catch a human or an antelope. Obviously in the water the crocodile has got a massive advantage, so once it gets its prey into the water, it generally doesn't go very well after that, and it's in the crocodile's favour. But this one is just having a very peaceful basking session on a Sunday. Brave, you were asking how many eggs does a crocodile lay in a season? So it's roughly about 50 eggs. The breeding season is generally about June, July, or that's where the eggs will be laid, or mating will take place, and then they will lay them. And yeah, so it's generally about give or take 50 eggs in a clutch. Obviously, the female will help get the hatchlings to the water and protect them for a while, but after that they're on their own. So that's often why we see that in species that don't invest a lot of parental care, they will have much more young to try beat the odds or increase the odds of survival. Obviously there's a lot of things that feed on baby crocodiles: fish, monitor lizards, birds, etc. So their survival is quite challenging, hence why the number of eggs. Herman, sorry, you'd like to know, how do you age a crocodile based on its physical features? Length is a big one. Obviously, the longer a crocodile, or the bigger a crocodile is, the older it is. It takes quite a long time for them to get to that size, and they tend to their size and age correlates. And what can lead you to help size it, obviously a bit of experience and seeing it, if it's at the right angle, that can give you quite an idea of how big it is. The size of their heads, there is a formula, I'm not very familiar with it, but I know of it, that researchers can use. If you measure the length of a crocodile's head, it can give you a relatively accurate idea of how long a crocodile is. It's known to have a bit of differentiation in it, or slight error, so you can always add a few more centimeters on, but it's a good guesstimation for how big a crocodile can be. But the main one is definitely size.
Would you like to know what an elephant's favourite food is? You could ask me questions like that in real time. Our safaris are live and interactive from the heart of Africa. Over here. Watch Safari Live and connect with nature.
And that's it for this morning's drive.
She's just got her impala, everybody.
And we're going to be heading out and seeing what animals we can find.
Out here, every wild moment counts, and as a Wild Earth explorer, you will not miss out. Watch the Wild Earth channel ad-free 24/7, and you can even rewind if you have missed out on something. Enjoy the behind-the-scenes video clips as well as fireside chat, or get the early offers on our travel experiences. It's the best way to stay connected and be part of the Wild Earth family.
I see we've got the zebras in full force today. Water's looking a bit shallow and stagnant at Camelthorne Farmstead today. A lot of zebras on top of the ridge there. It's for a second you think it's a bush or a shrub, but then you see it moving and realize it's a zebra melting into the horizon there. Brave, you'd like to know if that's a single herd. No, it's probably a congregation of a number of herds coming together at the water. That's also why we see them milling about or standing, and then certain animals coming down to drink, or groups. So they are sticking to their separate herds. They're just milling about or congregating near the water, and then as they start to disperse away from the water, they'll go kind of back into their herds with their dominant stallions, etc. They may well continue to associate further away from the water, but they will stick to the animals of their herd that they're familiar with. Always greatly enjoy the sounds here from Camelthorne or any of these cameras in the Boteti River region. It's such a wonderful sound hearing the zebras bay and make their very unique sound. I also heard, I saw some zebras the other day in the Kruger also making sounds like that next to the vehicle, and it's, I don't know, it's such a unique sound. It is also I think a very truly African safari sound. If you hear that, you know you're on safari. We have a lone kudu cow that's getting a drink on the fringes there. Also a few wildebeest milling about. So it's looking quite shallow, not a lot of water here at Camouflage. Or it's pooling in different regions a bit. Could be just a lot of animals drinking from the source, and it has decreased the flow ever so slightly. I know normally we see the elephants drinking from where this herd is closest to the camera, but I don't know, it just seems somewhat a bit shallower, or the flow seems a bit more reduced. The normal pool is still there in the background, but it certainly looks like the resource is a bit under strain, but it will obviously increase in flow. In a way, it's probably quite a lot more natural of your more normal spring. I must actually do some reading if it is a natural spring or it is a pumped water source. My feeling would be that this is probably a water source being pumped there from the underground water. But it's always good to know. There is spots many spots in Africa where there are natural springs. In the Mana Pools park in Zimbabwe, there's a place called Shiitake Springs where the water bubbles or seeps out to the surface, and it looks very similar to this. Obviously a massive lifeline to all the animals living in that area, especially during the dry season. Wide-eyed, you'd like to know if zebras identify their herd by smell. So smell is one of them, and then the other one is sight. Zebras are able to recognize the patterns in one another, or the facial patterns, etc. But smell also does play a large role. So they do rely on the two different factors. Obviously also in a large herd or a stampede, for example, or something, scent is going to help you a lot more than sight is, just due to a lack of visibility or difficulty seeing, and also in those close quarters where you've got access to scent. But they do use both of their senses to assist them. Always love seeing such large herds of zebra. I think it just screams wild, open, remote and free in the conservation narrative or idea. Obviously for huge herds of animals to be around like that, they're not bothered by people, and they are living quite a wild and free life. It's always quite awe-inspiring to see it. doing a bit of reading. So from what I can tell, this waterhole here at Camelthorne is pumped water or artificially fed, but at the same time it doesn't make a huge difference. It still looks very natural and pretty. You can see like it's been like this for years, the way the water's in a way kind of carved the channel that slowly leads into the mainstream of the Buteti River. You can also see where the animals have also rubbed off the edges. They are certainly being treated to quite a beautiful soundscape as well. The calls of the zebras and fish eagle calling in the background. Not two things you normally associate together, but nonetheless very pretty. I'm gonna leave our zebras and see what's waiting for us at Founders. I'm sure it's rhinos and I can't wait. Well, that was not a surprise I was expecting. I was expecting a rhino here at Founders. That's what I'm normally used to. But of course, a wonderful view of a zebra. It's quite pretty to see the reflection in the water that's so still. It's almost a perfect reflection there. And our subject is also standing very still, so I almost think it's maybe a statue for a second. So far the weather's been rather idyllic everywhere. See, not much of a wind blowing. Zebra is certainly comfortable where he's standing. You can even hear some bird calls in the background, so it certainly is a wonderful day in the Eastern Cape. Ah, there's our stars of the waterhole here at Mantis. I was wondering if they'd maybe gone on vacation, but there they are. Looks like two rhinos there. Looks like they've retired to the shade a bit, escaping the sun's rays. It doesn't look like they've had a mud bath yet, so they may end up coming in for a dip just now. They do seem to be stirring ever so slightly. I think we might see them going for a mud bath. I'm sure that's rather cooling on a warm day like this, and with the onset of summer in the southern hemisphere. Nikki, I do agree with you. It's always a wonderful treat to see a rhino, especially with the plight that they face in this ever-changing world. It's always one of my favorite sightings when I come across a rhino. I can happily sit there for hours just watching them do their thing, even if they insist on sleeping. But it's such a wonderful treat watching rhinos and enjoying them in their natural habitat. It appears as if this bull is doing a bit of scent marking. Just advertising that this is still very much his spot and he's the main man in charge. But I think he's got quite a peaceful setup here. Got a ensuite swimming pool, a nice shady spot, and I'm sure plenty of good grazing near here. I assume the female that's with him is not too phased by his antics at the moment. Kim, you'd like to know if it's a male or a female. That is my assumption. I can definitely see the one is a male. I assume the one lying down is probably a female. It's not normal to see two male rhinos associating like this, especially if the one is being dominant or showing dominant behavior. Definitely could be possibly a young male, but I have my doubts. That also looks like quite a large female, and I don't think two large male rhinos would necessarily associate like this. On cue, it does certainly seem like he's considering having a dip in the watering hole / mud after his business. Looks like he's traded spots with the zebra. He's told the zebra to move on a bit. It's always very interesting how certain animals are quite set in their routines. Elephants and rhinos, etc., you'll generally see hanging around a waterhole a very specific time of day, or in a very favorite spot of theirs. You can almost always rely on that knowledge if you're looking for them. I do think, though, unfortunately, in some reserves, with the way poaching has become quite a plague, it has unfortunately influenced a lot of the behavior of rhinos, and you often tend to see them approaching waterholes at a much later time when they maybe feel safer or it's quieter. Obviously here at Mantis, these rhinos are quite well looked after by anti-poaching units.
Let's go and take a look. See you out there.
Do you want to know why impala are the most common antelope we find here in the Kruger National Park? You can ask me questions like this in real time. Our safaris are live and interactive here in the heart of Africa. Join me on Safari Live. Connect with nature.
Every week, the wilderness delivers.
And that's why we're here.
Drama, chaos, crimes, humour. All moments you'll never forget. We've counted them down, argued about them, and finally picked the very best. From rare sightings to classic bush showdowns, this is nature's weekly highlight reel. Sharp facts, bad jokes, and the wildest top 5 you'll see this side of the savannah. It's not just a show, it's a wild bush week.
We are here with a male leopard.
Very thirsty bunch of giraffe that we have here. And they're all getting their full, slowly but surely all coming down to have a sip of water. There's always a bit of caution towards the elephant. I must say it's not being too cheeky. It looked like he was spraying them slightly, but it actually looked like it was more aimed at himself there. It's quite entertaining watching as the giraffes bend down in a way they're almost eye level for once with the elephant. Kind of looks like they are meeting the gaze of the elephant. It doesn't seem too perturbed though. Neither do the giraffes, to be honest, but that event where that one elephant charged the giraffe always sticks in my mind a bit. And I wouldn't say it gives me PTSD, but it always makes one aware of the risks of what can happen or go wrong at the waterhole between the elephants and some of the other animals when they do get a bit boisterous. But for today, everything looks rather peaceful. It seems like our pachyderm friend has had enough for today. It's quite interesting. You can almost notice that change in the giraffe's behavior quite rapidly as they move over to the section where the elephant was drinking. They certainly feel maybe a bit more at ease. Can have their choice of drinking spot now.
Even a hyena coming into the action as well now. Oh my word. She's stalking the hyena now. Leopard, hyena, lion, all together in one shot. Oh. Woo. This is action-packed.
Would you like to know at what age a buffalo calf gets its horns? These are questions that you can ask me in real time. Our safaris are live and interactive here in the heart of Africa. Join me on Safari Live and connect with nature.
Greatest wildlife spectacle on planet Earth. We'll see you there.
If you love watching Wild Earth, here's a little tip. You'll gain access to the channel ad-free. You can rewind and rewatch sightings and gain access to our live Tuesday safaris. There's also behind-the-scenes videos, fireside chats, and every Safari Live episode, whenever it suits you. It's just the best way to connect with nature.
Maybe he decided there's a different direction or somewhere else he wants to go spend the afternoon feeding. Might be a specific fruiting tree that he's maybe quite keen for, although I don't imagine there's much fruiting at this time of year. Quite a few of the trees will start to flower now, however. It is amazing how trees in the African savanna are able to essentially mine water deep below the surface, and even though everything else is quite dry, they've got the capacity to start blooming or growing new leaf buds. Truly real survivors of the African biome. That was the hooligans of the bushveld. Peace and quiet will definitely go out the window with them arriving. I think if you had to compare the two, I'd say giraffes are probably the more well-mannered and gentle denizens of the waterhole, compared to the zebra that just overwhelm and stampede towards the waterhole and walk straight into the area where everyone's drinking. They could maybe do with some manners or some bush etiquette, maybe a few lessons from the giraffe. The elands appear to also be quite well behaved, but the zebra certainly need a few lessons maybe. Maybe why we see the elephants chase them off sometimes. They just cause chaos. Still got quite a few zebras moving in. Don't know how much more space is left in this waterhole. I think the giraffes are probably gonna move out of the way. I'm sure they're not necessarily enjoying all the additional attention. Monique, I do concur. The braying can be a bit loud, especially when a powerful microphone from a camera is picking it up, and if your speakers are amplifying it. I think when you're out on a game drive or in the bush, it's certainly a lot more peaceful and maybe not so loud. It is interesting. I find the zebras here at Aldonia are a bit quieter compared to what we hear at Camelthorne or other locations. I don't know if it's just due to the number of zebras present, but I don't often hear too much vocalizations here. Anyway, let's head on over to Victoria Falls. Got some nice elephants coming in here at Safari Hook. They've got that excited swagger about them as they approach for a drink at the waterhole. I'm always blown away by how large these Etosha elephants always seem. They seem like very big animals. They've maybe got smaller ivory, but certainly very large animals. Sani, quite an in-depth question from your side. You're asking if the zebras urinate inside the water, and would the mixture of their urine and water affect them medically? I don't know how often they do it, but it's definitely a possibility. I've never really noticed antelope defecating or dropping dung into the water. I think it also depends. It depends on the situation, but most of your antelopes won't wade into the water, so I don't think it's a fact that occurs too often, but it certainly can take place. Elephants often do it. You often see elephant dung sometimes floating in a waterhole, and elephants will urinate in the water. Same with hippos, rhinos, etc. But at the same time, we must also remember it is a natural functioning ecosystem. Even though some of these waterholes are artificial, there's still bacteria and plants and all kinds of other organisms that will break down those secretions or excretions such as urine or dung and feed on it, and it will further sustain the life in the waterhole, which fishes will feed on it, or amphibians, and the system kind of continues. I'd also say it won't affect them medicinally. Animals that live in these wild habitats have generally got quite strong immune systems. They're exposed to all of these things on a regular basis. Obviously now and then if they're under a bit of stress they can get sick from it, but I don't think that's the leading cause. I think there's other organisms that are quite a bit more harmful. And once again, herbivore dung or urine is not such a big problem. It generally tends to be the animals that feed on or that are carnivores. That's where some of your pathogens tend to be harbored a lot more. Cedric, yeah, spot on. This is exactly how elephants cool themselves, and that's what I was speaking about earlier. When animals of habit in a way almost. You can almost count on by clockwork in the hot part of the day to see an elephant near a waterhole having a drink or spraying themselves with mud to cool down. Even in some cases they'll essentially swim, but yeah, they apply that cool layer of mud and water onto them. Obviously as it evaporates, that's also got a cooling action to it. It's also got other benefits, but yeah, that water and mud at the lower layers in the water will generally be quite a bit cooler than the external temperatures, and as the wind blows against it, it takes away a lot of that heat from them. It always looks very therapeutic. I would not like to be that dirty myself, but maybe if I was an elephant or a rhino, I would happily partake in mud baths quite regularly. In Hoedspruit at the moment, it's been getting quite warm in the greater Kruger region. I actually set up a outdoor shower for myself yesterday. I found the swimming pool's a bit cold still, but an outdoor shower with some wind is a very cooling experience and rather peaceful. So in one way I can at least say I've taken a bit of a lesson from the elephants on keeping cool. I need to reinvent the wheel. Ian with quite a cool question, asking if agamas can change colour the way chameleons do. I'll double check myself. If I'm not mistaken, agamas and chameleons are quite closely related on a taxonomical level. I know they are both reptiles, but I think they're quite closely related. But yeah, agamas can change colour, not to the same extent that chameleons can, or the versatility chameleons have of changing their skin colour for camouflage, but they can change their head colour, etc. It's generally more for social signalling, to signal dominance or attracting a mate, and so that's what we can see. Sometimes their colours change ever so slightly, but not to the same degree as what a chameleon is capable of doing. Botswana, no, not at all. Elephants have a preference for drinking cleaner water. I think that's as much, but they will suck up what's in the water essentially. They will be very careful. If the water's murky, they'll maybe try skim from the surface. They'll maybe stretch out to a section of the water body that hasn't been disturbed if there's zebra or if they've been taking a mud bath. Or that's also at times we see them drinking from the water inlet specifically. So they do have they're able to choose what they drink from, but once they slurp it up with their trunk, it is what it is essentially. It's also sometimes why elephants will sometimes dig up water in riverbeds, and if it's not to their taste, they will rather avoid it. But they will seek out fresh water, and dirty water tends to be the last resort. Melanistic marble, quite spot on. This is one of the few locations in southern Africa, or I think on the cameras that we've got access to, where you will see elephants and springbok together. Parts of Botswana, you can see it, but obviously Etosha has got quite a large springbok population, and I think that's often why we see them here. I think the Dikwe also has a bit of a springbok population. I don't think a huge one, but as far as I know, there are springbok there. And parts of Botswana you also see springbok. I don't think they're too much in the Boteti region, but they are definitely found in that area. But this is definitely one of the locations where you will see quite a bit of springbok. As far as South Africa is concerned, also most of the springbok are found in the arid west of the country. And I think actually in general most of your springbok population is in the western half of southern Africa. So safari hook is slap bang in the middle of that distribution, hence why we see them a lot more here.
See you out on the safari.
It could be a very exciting morning.
At Wild Earth, we believe every story has the power to create change. That's why we've launched the Wild Earth Impact Foundation, a non-profit dedicated to conservation and social impact. By showcasing conservation stories, we can change lives, protect nature, and empower communities. We have partnered with Empowers Africa to accept tax-deductible donations from US donors. Your donation will help fund critical programs that support our mission. Join us and be part of the change.
Would you like to know the difference between a male and a female wildebeest? You can ask me questions like this in real time. Our safaris are live and interactive here in the heart of Africa. Join me on Safari Live and connect with nature.
That is brilliant.
Ria, you say the best kind of roadblock?
Absolutely. Look at this.
Hello, girls.
Out here, every moment counts. As a Wild Earth explorer, you won't miss a thing. Watch the Wild Earth channel ad-free 24/7 and rewind if you want to catch something again. Enjoy behind-the-scenes videos, fireside chats, and early access to travel offers. It's the best way to stay connected and be part of the Wild Earth family.
I think once again just one of those location things, but this is one of the spots where you will see them. So we also have a busy little wagtail flitting around the waterhole. It'll be our Cape wagtail, but he's not really showing himself to us. Anyway, let's carry on our afternoon. Let's see what's waiting for us at Tower Lodge. A lot of action this afternoon at Tau. Wildebeest, waterbuck, a large herd of ellies, and of course all the various bird species. The elephant bull on the left seems to be a bit cheeky with the females there. He shook his head a bit and definitely throwing his weight around. I don't know what's upset him. I'm sure the females will just carry on, or the cows will carry on with their daily chores. This herd of ellies are definitely having a good dip in the water. Melanistic marble, I do concur. It's always a wonderful scene here at Tau. It almost feels like a Where's Wally picture. There's so much to look for. Crocodiles, spoonbills, geese, ducks, antelope, elephants. I think you could easily count about at least 10 species with most snapshots at Tower Lodge. Just brimming with life and diversity. And I think that's generally when a waterhole is a great place to spend our afternoon at, when there's something to look at no matter where you look. There's so much to keep you entertained. It's always a bit of a different story at a waterhole that's maybe a bit quieter, and you have to be a bit more patient and wait for something to come down to drink. Yeah, this is also definitely a birding paradise for myself. I think I could clock up a few nice species here. And yeah, water birding is also one of my all-time favorites, just because there's always something to see. Other bird species become a bit more quieter during the middle of the day, but at a waterhole there's always something going on. I agree, Jive Bunny. Yeah, definitely Medikwe is an all-time, I don't know, say favorite or reliable, but there's often something going on. Tembe is also a lot like that for me. There's 90% of the time something happening. It's not very quiet. I can see some black-winged stilts in the far back there, between the waterbuck and the elephants. But yeah, just another example of more species running around here. I think if I had to pick 3 top waterholes for activity, it would be Aldonio, Tembe and Tau. Those are definitely 3 excellent ones. I think that's also, we often found ourselves, no matter the session, doing at least 1 or 2 of those. But it is very cool over time how the number of webcams have grown and it's become a more popular thing. I remember when I was quite young, there wasn't very many webcams out there. There was only a handful, and back then they used to only take pictures, and every couple of seconds they would refresh the picture. So it took a while before video webcams became a thing to watch nature with. Quite glad that it is now more normal technology. It's a great way to escape the hustle and bustle of life, or just listen to some wonderful sounds and watch animals. The only problem is it often makes me want to just go back into nature when I watch it. Lucy, you'd like to know at what age will a baby elephant develop tusks. So they have such a thing as milk tusks, but generally from about 1 year of age you'll see the permanent tusks protruding. So that's also another great way. Those type of characteristics are a great way to age or identify the age, or have a rough idea of how old an animal is. I see we've got quite a nice close-up of all our different birds here. I see that waterbuck needs to engage a bit of four-wheel drive to get through the mud. But they are definitely munching on some very nutritious water vegetation there. Just one way in which their aquatic adaptations favour them compared to their other antelope species. And then we've got a spread of our black-winged stilts there. Very pretty birds. An Egyptian goose causing complete chaos there, chasing all the teals out of the picture. Only 2 brave ones managed to stick around. I don't know why it insisted on chasing the birds away. Egyptian geese can be a bit of bullies at the waterhole or at a water body. So we've got all the other teals there. As far as I know, those are red-billed teals. I can't see 100%, but that's a general species for that part of the world. Anita, you're asking if those waterbuck are eating algae. No, they're not eating algae. It's aquatic vegetation that's growing inside the water. There's a number of species. Some people refer to it as oxygen weed, etc., but for all intensive purposes it's pretty much aquatic vegetation that's just growing beneath the surface. Elephants will also eat it. Interestingly, I think you generally see the older bulls spending time eating that here towel, but how nutritious it is, I'm not sure. I think in the dry season, when there's quite a low availability of good grazing, that's why we see the waterbuck going for it. Maybe in the wet season, when the grass is in full growth, they will spend more time on the grass again. But that is the game of survival. The animals that are able to adapt their lifestyles to suit the seasons will always do the best. Gonna head back over to Safari Hook. Sounds like things are working there again. Well, all these large elephant bulls seem to be having a very social drink at the water inlet there. Definitely the local elephant bar. Seems like they're all sharing the water quite nicely with each other. No one's being bullied too much out of the way, or they're taking turns. Probably called it Tuska's Pub and Grub or something like that. That's all a couple of mature bulls just congregating. And then of course the very small looking springbok disappearing in the background there. It's amazing how small a springbok doesn't look big to begin with, but when it's next to an elephant, even more so. just blown away by the impressive stature of these elephant bulls. They are very large specimens, especially the two on the left. You can see they're quite mature, but they could definitely share a couple stories. It seems like the message is also out. They're gonna carry on with their journey. A bit of dominance being shown to the younger fellow that's squeezed in there. But elephants here at Safari Hook seem so much calmer when it comes to sharing the water inlet. I've been to some reserves where it gets rather boisterous or aggressive around there, and they're not afraid to chase each other or discipline one another. Well, I'm going to head over to Tembe and leave these guys behind to carry on with their social gathering. Ouch, this elephant seems to have a bit of a wound on its back leg. All that I can think that would cause that is another elephant. Looks like it's been gored or impaled by another elephant, so it probably got into a bit of an aggressive fight or a dominant fight with a younger, stronger bull. This elephant does look a bit older, maybe also a bit of a weaker condition. You can see some of these hip bones and sunken temple, but I would assume definitely a bit of an older male, and he's lost a fight where the other bull has stabbed him with his tusks. Yeah, that wound seems very swollen and painful. It looks quite fresh. Yeah, I don't think this is probably also not an elephant you would want to come across or bump into. He's probably not in a very good temper. He's probably a bit grumpy and on edge, so he will not tolerate much. That's quite a dangerous animal to come across on foot or even in a vehicle. He may behave quite unpredictably and aggressively. That being said, I see the Nyala being shooed out of the way. I see that elephant's disappeared out of the camera. A lot of comments and questions regarding that wound, but yes, that type of wound can definitely become septic. At the same time, it can heal. Concerns, it is quite a deep and large wound. I don't think it's got a good chance of maybe just closing up and healing on its own. It can, but I think that's a good candidate for a septic wound. But never say never. There's plenty of elephants that have had other wounds from poachers or things like that, and they continue to carry on. And elephants are quite tough animals. But certainly an interesting one, what reserve management do in a situation like this, because it's not inflicted by or caused by mankind. It's elephants to one another. So it is a natural process, and things must take place. But the reserve management may decide to do something if it is a safety concern for guests or park visitors or even staff of the reserve. It'd be interesting to know when that took place. I'm sure a few people have maybe noticed that elephant, and I'm sure if he's injured like that, he's not going too far. He's probably hanging around the vicinity here. But yeah, essentially, if a vet was to treat that, it would involve obviously sedating the elephant, giving the elephant a strong course of antibiotics, and I can actually see that elephant in the background there. It's another smaller pan at the back. Shame, poor thing. But yeah, they would try sterilize the wound, maybe sprayed with a disinfectant, a saline solution, just try spray out any septic cells or wound, and yeah, a large dose of antibiotics, and it probably has the ability to heal itself after that, but the big trick is just to disinfect it. But yeah, like I said, it's certainly a tough situation because it's not a human-related incident. So the law of nature is generally for nature to take its own course of action. But yeah, that's for nature conservation professionals in that situation managing the reserve to decide on what the best course of action is. And they will probably monitor the situation carefully. I was this year earlier in Pilansberg, and there was also a young elephant that was injured. They weren't entirely sure if it was actually, it got into a fight with a hippo, which in itself is quite a unique situation, or with another elephant bull. But it had apparently broken its back leg or hurt its back leg very badly, and yeah, reserve management decided the most humane thing to do was to euthanize the animal. So of course, not always a happy ending, but it is the way that nature works sometimes. But of course, provides, yeah, it's a circle of life. It provides food for other animals and goes back into the system, but it's never easy seeing an animal in pain or discomfort. I'll definitely try to keep my ears and eyes open to hear what happens with the wounded elephant here at Tembe. It's quite interesting that bull elephant rushed off to the side there and almost in the direction of the injured elephant we saw. I don't know if they may be having a bit of a disagreement with one another. One thing I did notice about that bull, he had two large chunks of his ear missing on either side, or two bits of it missing, so he's quite easy to identify. But we went from quite a busy scene here at Tembe, full of elephants, to everyone disappearing rather rapidly. Not an elephant in sight. Quite funny. Wonder what got them leaving the area in a hurry. Let's carry on to Meno Aquena. I think things are quite quiet at Tembe here for the moment being. Quite a large gathering of elephants here for once. Normally we always see a few ellies, and generally they are outnumbered far by the zebras. Of course there is a lot more zebras here today, but for once definitely a lot more elephants mingling about. Of course they're drinking from their premium drinking spot at the back there, and zebras are looking for a bit of water elsewhere. Lion Lloyd, I do agree with you. It's a very beautiful sound to hear all the zebra calls when they congregate like this, especially the way it echoes. It's such a cool sound. I do enjoy hearing it. Sometimes where I stay, the zebra butts also get a bit busy and you hear it from time to time. But it doesn't compare to the spectacle of it in this situation with such a large zebra herd.
What does it take to handle the wild? Balance. Determination. Focus.
Yaku!
And gear that can take a beating so you don't have to. My full name is Cedric Leslie Dold. I grew up mostly here in the Lowveld. I grew up here pretty much on the southern side of Kruger National Park, a place called Marloth Park, for most of my years. Something surprising about myself, I did play drums in a band for many years. Best sighting I presented, we found Palumba and the two cubs, and the cubs are just way big.
The bush, full of beauty, wonder, and absolute chaos. And now, all that madness has its own show. It's called a Wild Bush Week. The countdown of the most outrageous, heart-stopping, and sometimes downright ridiculous wildlife moments of the week. Lions throwing their weight around. Hyenas gate-crashing the buffet. Leopards doing, well, leopardy things. Each week, it's a fresh reel of safari gold, a mix of drama,
She's just got an impala, everybody.
danger, and a healthy dose of laughter. So, if you fancy a highlight show with bite, and I don't mean just the animals, tune in to a Wild Bush Week. You bring the tea, and we'll bring the tusks, tails, and teeth.
Quite easy to tell them apart. but obviously an animal's sense of smell and sight is a lot more sharper for those certain details in those situations. There's a rather large elephant bull here that's come for a bit of a mud bath. I see we actually have a crocodile also on the panda. He looks just like a log. I'm sure that's the angle he's going for. Hoping some small antelope will come by. The crocodile doesn't look too large. I'm sure he's a bit small to grab a zebra. Could maybe take a zebra calf, but I don't think it will be able to overpower a fully grown zebra. It's definitely turning into quite a muddy party. Most of the elephants are done drinking now. I also can't say that the zebras are too focused on drinking either. I think most of them are done now. But it does look like the Ellies are going to have some mud baths. It's definitely this section of the pool that they reserve for that. Tend to focus their drinking efforts on the cleaner water by the inlet. Let's see, we've got a few more eddies coming in for a drink. And the waterhole is certainly dominated by the elephants today. The zebra are well and truly, maybe not outnumbered, but out-resourced. The elephants are definitely in charge this time. It's quite funny how you can see, I don't know, sometimes it just feels like you can notice it in the body language or the behavior of the elephants. When there's so many zebra, they tend to drink and kind of leave or not throw too much weight around. But today it looks like they're not afraid to herd the zebras out the way. See, that crocodile is ever so sneakily moved a bit more deeper into the pool, whether it's to ambush a zebra or just get away from the elephants. It's probably one of the two. But the water level in this pool does look a bit lower than what I'm used to. Obviously this one doesn't look like it's got as much direct connection to the water inlet like at Camelthorn, so it will start to dry up slowly but surely. Hopefully the rains are not too far away. According to the weather experts this year, Southern Africa is due for a bit of a La Nina year again. So that normally means lots of rainfall and flooding in some instances, but yeah, lots of rain is always great for the bush. It helps keep the animals going, and that's why we're a little bit worried it was going to get trapped there in between the elephants. I wasn't too keen on that idea. The crocodile has completely disappeared now. I think its head is just sticking out. It's amazing, that pool looks so shallow, but they are just such masters of camouflage.
This is an unbelievable afternoon.
The Wild Earth Impact Foundation is a non-profit that uses the power of wildlife storytelling as a force for good. We create sustainable development projects that showcase conservation stories, empower people, and inspire environmental action. As a registered South African PBO, you can make a tax-deductible donation to the Wild Earth Impact Foundation. To find out more, visit our website.
My full name is Cedric Leslie Dold. The best driver at Wild Earth, it is me. I believe I'm the best driver. I think so, because I've... Best part of my job, I say, is just to try and look out for these animals, track them down. I love tracking animals. I love looking for, fresh tracks, and if you can find them, it's just at the moment of accomplishment. If I wasn't a presenter for Wild Earth, I would be the drummer for AC/DC.
There's some ellies that we're approaching now.
Light on her as well is absolutely gorgeous.
So we are going to enjoy the rest of this sunset.
Wow, this is absolutely crazy.
And thank you for joining us. For myself and Cam, we will see you next time.
Very committed to getting himself covered in mud. I see he's only got one small patch he's missed there on his bum, but otherwise he's well and truly coated. Using a bit of four-wheel drive to get out the sides there. I'm sure it's quite slippery, but yeah, that's definitely the dedicated mud pool. It's quite funny with that patch on his bum. It's just the only spot he couldn't get to. Doesn't seem as chaotic here as it does at Menoaquena. The zebra peacefully drinking from the pool there, and the elephants are quite happy here at their water inlet. See there's a bit of a jostle here going, and this other bull has decided to keep his friend out of there. He'll reverse into him with his rump and block him like that. This is quite funny how the water comes out here. It makes a very small channel, so the elephants do feel a little trapped in there. They can't climb over so easily. You have to negotiate it a bit more carefully. But, there's definitely enough for the both of them to share. He's definitely intent on shoving his rear into his associate's face there. And he's gone all the way in for the inlet there. But I think they'll both be happy. There's enough water for them both. I must say we've definitely been serenaded by a lot of zebra calls today. I think also the one animal we've seen the most today, aside from the elephants for once, has been the zebras. Almost everywhere we've gone we've had some zebra sightings. Probably only Tembe that didn't have some zebras for us. Quite excited to see how this landscape is going to change once the rains come. It's a little area that I've watched for too long on the webcams. I think the cams only opened up this year if I'm not mistaken. But I think it'll be very pretty to see if the rains are good in this area and how it will transform. I know it is quite a sight to see when the Boteti River itself is flowing and full of water. Another example of the miracle of the bush, how it can transform with a bit of, well, enough rain. I wouldn't say a bit of rain, but it is always fantastic to see the changes. I'm sure this is quite a peaceful spot to sit at this lodge with a nice cold beverage in your hand in the shade, just watching the elephants do their thing and the zebras braying and clowning around. It's just fascinating how there's something going on in every little section. There's a zebra moving that way or this way, just a constant stream of action. Really quite peaceful to watch. Maybe a bit low on the birding side of things, but I'm sure there's a few birds to occupy oneself. But that's also the great thing with birding. If you look hard enough, you'll always find something interesting to watch. I always find sometimes with mammal viewing, or the larger mammals, there's not always something going on, so it can get a bit dull. But with birding, the excitement's always high. We're slowly getting towards the end of the show. I think it's been a nice peaceful Sunday session. Once again, thanks to everyone who's joined in and sent in your questions and comments. It's been another great session, and I always enjoy all the sights and sounds that we're exposed to. I hope everyone enjoys this afternoon's drive, and I'm sure I'll see you again shortly.